Hi, guys, welcome back. And if you don't know who we are, I'm Dakota.
And I'm Danielle.
And we are very sorry that we kept you guys waiting for so long. We know we went MIA for a bit there, and the socials included.
Yes, but if you follow us on our personal pages, you'll know that we both have kind of shared what we're up to. However, a lot of like the deeper and more real conversations and things that have been going on just hasn't been shared online. And so in these first few episodes, we really just want to catch you guys up on what's been happening in our lives and what we have been doing during this break between 2021 and now. And if you're a new listener, we do have a first season. So if you want to go back, there's a lot about our first season on there and our first episode. It kind of introduces who we are and whatnot. So that is available to you if you're new here.
Yes, absolutely. And if you have seen, we have decided to gear our content more towards parenthood and we are rebranding, and we're speaking on the struggles that we go through when stepping into our highest self still, but except or and also we are talking about parenthood. We're giving our podcast a new identity shift as we had shifted in our identities as well. That being said, we changed our name to Mystic Mamas. We really resonate with mystic because it means a person who seeks by contemplation and self-surrender to obtain unity with the universe, or who believes in the spiritual apprehension of truths that are beyond the intellect. So really all about truth and finding that truth with a capital T in your life when it comes around with spirituality, manifestation, the universe.
Yes. And then mamas is obviously because we both became moms. We both resonate with pivoting. I think even in the beginning, we kind of were like apprehensive, but that's who we are now. We are moms and we are stepping into this new version and identity within ourselves. And we just really felt that we needed to shift the podcast with that. And so it feels more in alignment now with who we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason like we resonate with pivoting is when I got pregnant and when Dakota got pregnant unexpectedly, I know we both were going through a lot and we were just trying to search through podcasts and socials and find somebody or something that we could resonate with how we were feeling, because a lot of the stuff we found was like, it was just the like rainbows and butterfly effect of pregnancy and like you're glowing, this is a blessing, all these things that were just not in alignment with how we were actually feeling. And when I was pregnant, Dakota wasn't. So I really felt very isolated in my thoughts and my feelings and like how pregnancy was going for me, because it just felt like I was alone in the like real way I was feeling, because it wasn't great. And we really wanted to just help people. Once we both realized that we had such a similar experience with pregnancy, we wanted to help others that were going through something as well, if they could resonate with us. And we obviously weren't the only two that probably felt this way. And we wanted to normalize the struggles of parenthood and not just the beautiful parts, because everyone knows there's beautiful parts to parenthood. But what people are not talking about are the real things. And I think that if we could help others, like before they even become parents, or if they want to become parents, if they're already parents struggling, like we want to be there. We want to create a community where we are allowed to have these conversations, where we're not shamed for these conversations, and where we find a community in these struggles, because it's not easy and it's not always a beautiful process in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Find a community in the truths, kind of like what I was saying with Mystic. Like, we just want the truth, the underlying truth. Like, obviously, you want to be happy and you want to see gratitude in everything that you do, but also some days are hard and it's okay to admit that to everybody. It's okay to admit that to yourself too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, first things first, we do want to apologize for episode 10. So, if you're a new listener and you're going back and listening, you can disregard episode 10. It didn't end up coming out. We're going to leave it there because I feel like it's a good staple.
Yeah,
and
it's part of our process.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good reminder of what we can fix. But also, we really do apologize for all of that. We did not realize.
No, and whenever we left off on season 1, we really expected to come back after taking a small break, and it ended up being an extended sabbatical. Mm-hmm. Because of a lot of things that were going on, obviously. And at the time, we just were starting to feel out of alignment with our content and felt like we were just like putting pressure to push stuff out, like
Yeah.
quantity over quality almost, instead of creating intuitively and in alignment. And we were able to recognize that, and I'm very proud of us for that. And taking the break kind of helped us step back in a space, and it gave us room for what was about to come that we were not aware of.
Yeah.
I also, for me personally, I think we both had different things we were going through. Well, obviously, we both had different things we were going through at that time that also made us feel like it was time to take a break and kind of look more inward of what was going around. Me personally, I had a lot of family stuff going on that year. If you go back and listen to season 1, you'll know that a lot was happening. And I was doing my best to kind of handle it the right way. I was also taking a coaching course with Alyssa Nobriga, and I felt like a lot of ego and limiting beliefs and a lot of things. And with my personal life, I just couldn't handle it all. And I ended up falling out of the course. And that was a really hard thing for me to take. And I just felt like an imposter trying to talk to people about healing and doing things when I couldn't even get through what I was going through. And it was just really hard. And then it wasn't honestly long after that last episode where I started to feel a lot of physical ailments. I had just started a new job as a server at a place downtown here where I live, and it was going all right, but towards when I started to quit, I started to get really, really bad, like debilitating back pain to where I just couldn't wait tables. There's no way I could go in when I could barely walk. And I was really confused because so many things, like I was working out, I was doing things that like, it didn't really make sense that my back was in so much pain, but I have had a history of back issues. So started to see a chiropractor and started to do that. And then it just kept getting worse. And for a while, I thought maybe the chiropractor was making it worse, like the couple weeks in. And then I started to look online, like, what could this back pain be? And I found one article, and if you're a female if you're a female and you are terrified of pregnancy, you know that if anything mentions that it could be a pregnancy symptom, that's the first thing you get worried about. And that's what happened. I saw that you could get, now mind you, I don't think I knew much about pregnancy or what could all happen to your body, but when I thought of back pain in pregnancy, I thought like towards the end when you're already like carrying the baby, you already got a lot. Well, I was wrong. I learned that you can actually get it from implantation because your body and your ligaments are preparing to move and stretch for the baby. And my previous back issues, I have herniated disc, was something that they mentioned. Like if you have previous back issues, then this could happen to you right from the bat. And I was instantly nervous because I was also like a day late on my period. But a day is all it takes to be late before you start like low-key panicking.
Yeah.
And so being myself, one day I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to take a pregnancy test just to like rule that out. You know, like as soon as I see the negative test, I'll probably start my period the next day. I'm just tripping for no reason. It's probably all just period related. And so I randomly just pulled out a pregnancy test, not thinking anything of it, and I took it, and the faintest second pink line came up, and I really felt like I was going to vomit everywhere because I was shaking. I had no idea. There was no way, right? There's no way this pregnancy test would be accurate. I lost all trust for my pregnancy test. I knew there's no way these things work. At this point, there's no way these things work. So I was like, I'm gonna take another one. I took one. This time I took a digital one, and it just straight like took 2 seconds to say yes plus. And I was shaking. I was terrified. I can't really explain the amount of thoughts that rushed through my head at once. The only one I could tell you I had immediately was, I'm not fucking ready. No way.
Yeah.
This isn't for me. I don't even know if I want kids. I don't want kids. For a long time, I don't want kids. I'd never wanted kids. It wasn't something that was in my future plan at all. It was something that with my current partner at the time, the father of my child, I had actually discussed with him like maybe 5 years down the road, because I was getting to a point where it was like kind of shifting. Maybe I did want kids, maybe not. Like I was 31. We contemplated this for our future, but most certainly was not a decision that was made of for sure. And it definitely wasn't something I wanted or thought I could handle at that moment at all. And it was more than just a what do we do situation, because I have a past history with this situation. When I was 18, I did get pregnant by my partner at the time, and I had an abortion because at that time it just was certainly not the right person, for one, and it certainly wasn't the right time. And there was a lot, like, I could go deep into that, but the point is like, although it was one of the hardest things I've done, it has never been something I regretted. It is something that I 100% am grateful I did. I wouldn't have the life I have now. I wouldn't have the experiences I would have now. I have never once looked back on that and thought, I wish I hadn't done it. It was just really hard. It was a very hard thing to do emotionally. My boyfriend at the time wasn't supportive. It was a lot. It was heavy. And I knew if it was heavy then, I couldn't see myself being able to do it now in this situation where I loved my partner so much. I'm in my 30s. I have lived a very full, and not that there's not more life to live, but like I have had a very fun and exciting life. And I just didn't feel like the things that allowed me to make that decision before were things that I could rely on this time, and they just weren't. And as terrifying as that was, I just felt like I don't know that I could have had an abortion this time. And so it wasn't as cut and dry as I thought it would be. For a long time, I thought that I would just not have an issue and that I would, I called Dakota, and even she was like, are you really going to have this baby? And I was like, honestly, I don't know. I think it shocked her more that I didn't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than anything. Right. And so, and those were all my first thoughts, right? Like, what am I going to do? All these like deep and heavy thoughts. And then I had to tell my boyfriend. And the second I walked out of the bathroom, I looked at him and he looked at me, and he goes, what? Because he saw it on my face. I was already crying, and he was like, you're pregnant. And he instantly looked so excited when I told him yes. And I just felt such a rush of guilt. It was like this, why can't I feel that way? Now I'm going to have to make this decision. And of course, he honored my body, my choice. And I just want to cut in here and say that I fully agree with this statement still. I think that every woman should have their part. And if this is something that doesn't resonate with you, I understand that. We all have our different reasonings and opinions on this, but I stand tall in my truth, and I stand tall in the fact that I think all women should have a choice. And my boyfriend feels the same way. And I'm very grateful, because it was, that part was also heavy for me, and I didn't know how he would react, but he was extremely, extremely considerate with my feelings and what I was going through and what I had been through in my past. And even though he didn't feel some type of way about my reaction, I did. I felt guilty. I felt a lot of things about like disappointment. I was disappointed for many reasons. I was disappointed that I couldn't be excited to tell him, that I couldn't do this cute little like, oh, we're pregnant, like announcement. I was disappointed that we were in a terrible financial position for this. I was disappointed in so many things, and I was disappointed I was pregnant, straight up. Like I just, it was, and that was hard. It was the first time I think I felt mom guilt. I didn't know that at the time, but I felt very guilty for these feelings, because like this kid deserves excitement. He deserves so much. He deserves the world. But something in me knew that like I was going to keep this baby. And I knew that I couldn't go through with anything else, and I kept the baby, and I made that choice. The thing is in making that choice, it didn't change my mind. It didn't make me excited all of a sudden. It didn't detour my feelings. And honestly, it didn't make me stop contemplating what I should do. I kept going over that thought. Like, am I making the right choice? Is this something I really can do? Is this something I want to do? And it's like, I couldn't stop. Like, even though I made the choice deep down in my soul, I knew I wasn't, but I just kept going back and forth. And that was also disappointing. It was also, I felt shitty about that. Like, I wanted to make the choice and then be excited. And I kept telling myself, like, these feelings will pass, everything. And then my pregnancy was fucking hard. I got so sick the first trimester. I was so full of anxiety and depression. And then I found out and I didn't even know this, but you can get prenatal depression. And I had no idea that you could do that, but I was having these heavy feelings of grief and mourning this future that I thought I had. I felt like I had to put a stop to every part of my life. Like, and this happened in 2021. And I feel like I had just gotten my life kind of back started after all the shit in 2020. It was like, I had just had all my life taken in 2020. We had to stop our worlds and do all this. I was finally getting back in the groove of like feeling like myself again. And then boom, I'm pregnant. And now it's like, am I ever going to have, I just feel like I never got to say goodbye to a life I really loved. And I was grieving that heavy, and I didn't know how to like really articulate that or say that, yeah, I'm grieving my old life. It just felt like, wow, shit. Like you're just mad you're pregnant, you're having this baby, and there's nothing you can be excited about. People would ask me, oh, are you excited? And I would have to put on a front because like, honestly, I just wasn't. I was terrified. There's so many things like the unknown it put me into like where I disassociated a lot. I had a hard time really facing the big, strong feelings I was feeling. I was on early bed rest, and my back, throughout my pregnancy, my spine actually shifted from Oliver. And that's like how intense my back pain and how intense my back problems got with it. It was a lot. And I just felt a lot of like growing resentment towards Daniel too, because nothing was happening. He wasn't changing. He's still going to work. His body felt good. He felt good all the time. And I was just like sick. I was sick. I was depressed. I was in bed all the time. I was losing a lot of my independence when it came to things that I could do. I could barely work anymore. So it turned me into being heavily relying on Daniel and his money. And I had never in my life experienced that because I've always been someone who can hustle my own money when I want it, when I need it, get what I want, do what I want. And having that all change so instantly was terrifying. It was just so scary. And I really didn't know who to talk to. I'm really grateful I had Dakota who allowed me to kind of like share these darker feelings. But at the same time, like, she couldn't understand because she wasn't going through the same thing. And, like, it was definitely something that was very, very hard to deal with alone. And, like, I wish I could have done more for myself. Hindsight's 2020. But at the same time, those feelings were so heavy that I did do a lot of, like, things that kind of aided my depression. And then when I was 27 weeks pregnant, I actually got in a car accident and I wrecked and totaled my car, which put me reliant on my boyfriend's car and definitely took me out of the little work I was able to do with Amazon deliveries and stuff like that. And it just was another, like, I felt like my pregnancy just was really breaking me down in every way and form. And I struggled really hard with finding a connection to my baby. Even as he grew, I feel this intense need to protect him, and I knew that I would be shattered if something happened to him. But I didn't feel that the love and the connection that people feel when they're like pregnant. He really felt like a parasite that was just draining every ounce of my being from my mind to my body, and it was so incredibly hard to like feel that way when you feel like you should love this thing. You feel like you should be excited. You should feel like you want to take pictures. I barely even wanted to have a baby shower. I wanted to hide alone in my room. I was isolating myself because I felt isolated and depressed, and I hated having to put on a front to people about my pregnancy. I didn't want to be asked any questions. I didn't want to have to act like I was excited when I wasn't. And I felt this incredible guilt that I was already failing as a mother. I'm already failing. Like, it's just the beginning and he is not even here yet, and I'm already failing because I just don't feel like a parent. I'm terrified of childbirth. I was growing him in this depressed environment, and that really was hard for me. I felt like he was just like being born, like molded from my sadness, and that was really hard to feel. And anytime I was talking to him in my womb, it was me crying and apologizing. I didn't have conversations with him where I was excited or anything. It was me crying and apologizing because I felt like I was already a terrible mom, and I felt like I was already failing him in a huge way. And I knew that, spirituality, I knew that like they feel what we feel. And I felt like I was just giving him the worst beginning. And everyone telling me it was a blessings and all these things, it was like it added more to my overwhelm because I just was so overwhelmed with thoughts. The world was becoming such a scary place. All of a sudden, I saw all these terrifying things around me. All of a sudden, I saw how I had to protect another life. I had all these anxieties. I was in my third trimester when the Robb Elementary thing happened, and when the Robb Elementary shooting, and it sent me down this huge spiral. I didn't know how I was supposed to bring a child into this world. I didn't know how I was supposed to be a mom. I didn't know how I was supposed to like live in that fear that your heart is living outside of your body and you have to let him into a world that is cruel and ugly sometimes. And I wanted to feel like this is a beautiful world and he's a light I'm bringing into the world, but I just felt heaviness and darkness, and I felt like I was honestly being selfish bringing him into this world in this space where we weren't ready financially in any way. We were still living with Dakota and Fred for roommates. We had to put him in our room. We didn't have a nursery. We shared a room with him. We shared a closet with. I just felt like in every way and form, I was making the wrong decision. And I felt that almost up until like the very end, honestly. And I kept contemplating this, like, am I making the right choice? Am I making the wrong choice? Can I really do this? Am I going to regret motherhood? And then he's going to grow up with a mom who's angry and ugly all the time, and like am I going to resent him? Am I going to continue to resent Daniel? Am I going to is this the biggest mistake I've ever made? There's so many things, just like constantly I was battling with never wanting to be a mom. Like, what if I was right? What if I really was never meant for this and I pass on all these generational traumas to him because I can't do it, because I can't bring myself to heal and move forward, because I felt like I was really just like regressing and sinking into this depression, and nothing I did. Like, there were moments where, I would journal and I'd take a walk and I'd feel good for a little bit, but it just always wrapped right back around. I looped myself right back around into these same spots where I just was depressed. I was upset. And in that was weight gain. One of the biggest fears with pregnancy was, if you listen to episode 1 in our first season, we talk a little bit about our past and my past struggle with weight and being overweight. And I was already kind of down when I got pregnant right before. So I'd already put on like 10, nothing big, nothing crazy, but I'd already been kind of gaining weight. And as soon as I got pregnant, I knew instantly, like, there's no way around gaining weight when you're pregnant. And it was a big fear. And I think it's another thing I shut down on pretty instantly, was that I didn't know how to separate gaining pregnancy weight from being overweight and fat. And I was afraid I would gain a whole lot. And in that, like, in my depression, that's kind of exactly what happened. I ended up gaining about 100 pounds in pregnancy. And every pound I saw happen, it added to my mental shit show. It just added. Every time I looked in the mirror, I never felt pregnant. I never felt cute. I never felt like I had that cute pregnancy experience. I had to force myself to take any pictures that I did, because I just felt so incredibly huge and ugly from the get-go, from the start. It didn't take long before I was just like, this is terrible. Like, I'm gaining weight. And then I was gaining weight so fast. My doctor was a bitch about it. My doctor, like, Dakota wanted to fight my doctor all the time, because she really was. My doctor was a straight, like, bitch about it. She always told me, like, she always said things. It was always something about my weight gain. And if I have to be honest, like, my doctor experience was so trash too. Like, I had no help. And that was another thing that was really hard for pregnancy, for a state that we live in Texas, for it to want to, like, really have people have babies. There's no help. There was no help for us financially. There was no help for me mentally. There was no help for me. If I was going to learn anything about pregnancy, I needed to have questions to ask my doctor. I didn't know what questions to ask my fucking doctor.
Literally.
I didn't know what I needed to know. Like, everything that went wrong, Oh, the first time I went to the emergency room for my back. Oh, that's pregnancy, girl. Don't worry about it. That's just how it is. And like, that's the only answer I kept getting when I brought up real issues I was having. It was
Yeah.
just like, yeah, that's pregnancy. And I was like, okay, what? And it's just like, get used to it, toughen up is kind of how it felt. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, that's just that's what you signed up for kind of attitude. And it's like, is it? Because I had no freaking clue that this is how hard pregnancy would be for me. Like, it just was hard. And I
Yeah.
was really grateful that I didn't read it. I couldn't bring myself to read a lot of pregnancy books because it was all overwhelming. Honestly, learning
Yeah.
about babies, making a list for baby items was everything I did was so overwhelming. And the more
Agreed.
and the more I looked at like, and so my doctor's experience was when the more I looked at like things online for moms, the more I noticed like how much people are shamed.
Yeah.
And then I in turn was like, man, seeing all these things that moms are shamed for, like, what would they think about me and my experience? Like, I must be a terrible fucking mom. Like, it's so hard. And so I couldn't even bring myself to read baby books because it just all was too much. But I did find one, and I honestly don't remember the creator that like. I don't even know how I found this book, honestly. But it's called Labor Like a Goddess, and it actually heavily focuses on the mom and your mental and your journey from maiden to mother. And that was one of the books. It did take me like my whole pregnancy to get through this one book, but I'm really grateful it's the one book I finished because it was very, very, it helped me a lot with my mindset. And I think it really helped me through my birth for sure. But it helped me to feel like a little bit less alone in my journey because she does talk that it's a journey and you do have to release parts of yourself. And that was hard for me. I felt like I struggled to really identify with being a mom and releasing my past self. And I struggled with
Yeah.
that my whole pregnancy and honestly up until today still. It's very hard and it was a very, very like scary process to let go of who you once were to become someone you never thought you would be. And I felt shame in that too. I almost felt shame with like my friends that were childless. See, with Dakota, I felt like our relationship where it was going to change forever. I felt like one of my other best friends, Taylor, I thought our relationship, and like, yeah, of course they're going to change because you're having kids, right? It does change things. But like, I just had this intense fear that I would be left with nobody and no one anymore because they wouldn't want to be my I don't know. It sounds silly when I'm saying it back, but like these were real fears I had that I would lose a life that I had molded, like I would
Yeah.
lose my ability to do all these things that I loved. And like without all these things that I loved, who am I? Like without all these things I was doing outside of a family life, who am I? Like once I'm stripped down and I really was losing an identity that I didn't realize, but I was like, it was a part of shedding my identity and it was very hard to do because I was in my 30s. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like I built a solid adult life on my own. Just
Yeah.
me and my dog, you know what I mean? Like my dog for a long time was probably more of a responsibility than I needed to. And that was another thing I felt in pregnancy. I was getting very frustrated with my dog. And that also added to my like fears because I was like, am I going to be frustrated like this? Like I can't, my dog would lick herself and I'd be like, get out.
Literally. But I hate that sound as is. So.
No, that sound is very triggering. But at the time, like it was just one of those things. Any little thing she did, I just was like
Yeah.
triggered by the responsibility of something else. And like it just added to like, am I going to be able to be responsible for a child?
Yeah.
Like, is this something I can really do? Because it doesn't feel like it. And it never felt like it. And I wish that my pregnancy, I could look back and like find, beautiful parts in it. But the longer it went on, the more I just couldn't wait to get him the hell out of me. I just got bigger and heavier. And my last trimester was in summertime. I could barely be outside. I could barely go do anything. I was watching Dakota go to pool parties and the lake. And I went to the lake with everyone and everyone's drinking. And I'm literally watching people live the life I was living before. And it was like, now I can't literally do anything. And I'm not having fun because I'm miserably pregnant and it's 110 degrees out here and I can barely breathe. And so I was
Yeah.
in my room, isolated a lot, and it was just really hard. And I was disappointed, again, just disappointed that that was my pregnancy experience. I didn't get the beautiful, exciting, even when I told my family I wasn't excited, it was more like a, hey, I'm pregnant. And like my brother, and that's another thing, my brother and my sister were both having kids at the same time too. I have a niece and a nephew that are both relatively the same age as Oliver. And so that was another thing that was heavy on my heart, and heavy, like, I'm going to have this kid that's the same age. I'm not excited like they are. It was just like so much. And then at the very end of my pregnancy, I got COVID, me and Daniel both. I was 40 weeks pregnant and we got COVID. And that's literally how my pregnancy went. Like, just, it was just shit after shit after shit after shit until the very fucking end. And I
Yeah.
just, like, again, as much as people were like, I love being pregnant, I fucking hated it. And it is a big, if it's a big detour on like me being a one and done type situation, because I literally never want to be fucking pregnant again. That's how hard it was for me. And I wish it was a different experience, but as Dakota and I have gone on, we've actually connected with other people who felt the same. So we know it's not, you're not alone in that, if that's how you feel. Like, it's
Yeah.
not all pregnancies are beautiful. And I think that's a big reason why we're doing what we're doing and sharing our stories, even though it's kind of hard, because these are scary topics to say out loud. Like, these aren't normal conversations. It's not something that we want to feel, but this
Yeah.
is the reality for some women. And I think it's important we shed light on that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had a very similar experience to Danielle. Everything she said I resonated with, even down to the dog thing, because my cat was annoying me at the time. So everything that she experienced, it was like I got to experience, like it's exciting. But no, but
Yay.
I also experienced, and it was hard for me too. And going into my pregnancy, I mean, going into both of our pregnancies, again, these were unexpected. It was not something that we ever wanted or ever dreamed of, like most people. I say most people because I feel like a lot of people do want children, but going different ways now. But yeah, we just never wanted them. They were never in our plans. And so going from a thought process of, yeah, F them kids to, oh, we're having kids is like a complete mind shift and mind fuck that you have to go through because you made the choice to do it and now you can't turn back.
Yeah.
And it's heavy. It's like I made this choice, I cannot turn back. Like I feel like in most choices you can maybe turn back, but when you're pregnant, you can't just turn back. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
There's no going back.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's a lot. And talking about going back, let me take you guys back to 2021 where we left off. But during my time around that, I was currently working at an insurance company. I believe I talked about it then, but I was taking customer service calls. And aside from that, which I don't believe I talked about, I was in a very, very, very toxic relationship. I would even say it was a toxic fling, but it definitely brought me down mentally and emotionally. But you know, when you go through like a really toxic breakup or a breakup in general, and you come out of it and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to start living my life to the fullest. I'm going to do everything I ever wanted. I'm free. Like that was holding me down. That's definitely the mindset that I ended up going into. And I started doing things that I finally feel like I stepped into, which was like shuffling, having to teach shuffling classes, not having to, but I got to teach shuffling classes and I started doing shuffling meetups and really creating a community around that. And oddly enough, when I did one of my shuffle meetups is when I met my current boyfriend, the baby of my father, the father, the father of my baby, the love of my life. Yeah, I met him and we kind of instantly fell in love. However, within the first 3 months of us really getting to know each other and falling in love is when I missed my first period. And around this time, I wasn't worried that I missed my period because I had took a plan B and women, if you know, you know, but in the past I've taken a plan B and it's messed up my period completely. And so that was my thought process. I was like, it'll come. Like it'll come when it comes. I had a really long one and so it's probably going to skip this month. Like that was my thought. It was all vibes, no thoughts really actually. And I remember going downstairs to Danielle and we were talking I was just casually telling her that I missed my period, and she's like, dude, you should take a pregnancy test. And I'm like, it's not that serious, but all right, I'll wait till Fred comes and I'll take the pregnancy test. So Fred comes over later that night and we take one. And I think it was like a Dollar Tree one or a really cheap one because the line came up really faint. And I'm not saying that's why it was cheap, but it was just like in my head, I'm like, oh, this is a cheap one. Like, that's not real. Like, I don't know what that is. Like, that's weird. That's weird.
Yeah.
And I remember immediately we had the conversation because my mind starts running, right? I'm like, well, what if I am pregnant? What if that is true? But then a part of me was like, nah, dude, you're good. And so me and Fred had the conversation. Then I asked him, if I was like hypothetically, what would you want to do? And he was like, I'm 60-40 of keeping it. And I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I love this guy. He's great. He's amazing. Like, yeah, I'm 60-40 too. This is all hypothetical and I'm good here, you know? And then what Google told me to do was to take a pregnancy test about 2, 3 days later to verify. And so I went and got a pregnancy test, not thinking it was going to really come up as anything. And like Danielle's, mine came out bright pink and is like, you're pregnant. It was a more expensive pregnancy test this time around too. So I believed it. And my instant reaction was, holy fucking shit. What did I do? I felt instant deportation with heck. I felt instant disappointment, kind of like what Danielle also stated. It was just like, how could I do this to myself? Why wasn't I being more safe than I already was? I can't be pregnant. Like, I already felt like I had so much going on for me. And at that moment, getting pregnant was not part of my plans. Like, I wanted to spend time with Fred. I just got to know him. We just met. Like, it was 3 months and our relationship was going really well. And I don't know, I just wanted to spend more time with him before I had any things that were really tying us down like a child. And I felt like for once it was a relationship that I got into that was not toxic. It was my first actual like really healthy relationship. I know it was only 3 months, but I feel like I know the saying is, kind of bizarre, but like when you know, you know. And it was like I knew with
Yeah.
him. I instantly knew with him. And it was so weird too, because when we first met, I had this feeling of like, I've met this person before. And I truly feel like it was our souls in the past connecting. And I reconnected with him, whether or not he was my child then, he was my dad, my mom, I don't know. But like, I've definitely met this man in my past lives. And I truly felt that. And so around that time, again, I was just very disappointed because I had all this going on for me. And kind of like Danielle, I had this fear because my instant reaction was, I can't have another abortion. And yes, I've had an abortion in the past. I was 16 years old. It didn't go as planned. I knew this guy and we were dating for a little while, but he honestly did not treat me well. He was not a good person for me. He thought I was lying when I asked for money for the abortion. He wasn't there for me and he left me. And I was alone and I sat in that all by myself. I did have my sister and my mom, which I'm glad that they were there for me, but it's different when you go through something and they're not going through it because you do feel alone. And
Yeah.
during my whole process, like actually like during the actual abortion, like I was alone in that. And that was very heavy for me. And after that, I became really depressed. And I was 16 years old. So like losing this guy, I thought I really liked him. Like, you feel like you're in love with everybody. And like I really liked him and he left me. And it was just like, holy fuck, like I feel so alone. Like I don't want to lose Fred. Like that was my current thought. Like I can't lose this guy. And if I have an abortion, he's gonna leave me. Like obviously it was past trauma, but at that time it was
Yeah.
like that was my constant thought. Mind you, hormones are already going through my body too, right?
Those fucking hormones, man.
Literally, dude. They're crazy. They're crazy.
Yeah.
But and also another big factor in my whole decision was I can't even have the abortion in Texas because the abortion laws were in effect. So if I was and someone was to find out, I could go to prison or the doctor wouldn't even do it. It's just like there was a lot of factors at play at this moment. And like my decision to have an abortion would be to have to go out of state, which would be me missing work and having to keep going because it's more than one appointment. And it was just I felt like that was way more heavier than making the choice to have my child. But all that being said, we decided to keep it. And another portion of me was like, why not? I have a stable job. I'm 25. I've lived my life as well. And I love this man. And I know he's going to be a part of my life. Like, I truly felt that again within. And so after we just decided to have the baby, we did talk to our family, and our families were also supportive. So that was a good factor as well.
Yeah.
We were like, you know what, we could do this. Like, we got this. Like, that didn't last long, like my feelings there, but I'm like, but we got this. But Fred ended up moving in after that shortly, and we started to work our own jobs, doing the day-to-day shit. But I ended up really starting to hate my job because I have all these thoughts of disappointment and guilt and shame around what I was doing and that I wasn't ready, feeling like I was mourning my old life still. And I ended up just like not being able to take on my work anymore. I was just so frustrated with it. I hated it, honestly. It was a lot of hate around it. And so just keeping that in mind, I just really was ready to let it go already. And I was seeing that Danielle didn't have a job and that she was a stay-at-home mom. And not that that looked like that great or anything like that, but I like the way my mindset was at that time. I just felt like, man, if I didn't have a job to worry about, like I could just be.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, you don't want to just be in those feelings. So I don't know. Not all the time, especially if you're just letting your mind run and you're not actually like trying to do anything about it, because that's where I was. I was just letting my mind run, and I
Yeah,
wasn't
same.
holding compassion for myself or being there for myself or anything like that or validating my feelings. It was mainly me just talking down to myself, and also like it was hard because during that time of, being in Dallas, really, it was just like I was seeing all my friends pass me by. Because, like Danielle said, I was just going to pool parties and doing all these fun things. I go to shows all the time and raves. And now it was like I couldn't even do that anymore because, well, one, the loud music could affect your baby inside of you. And that was like really big for me. I was scared of that. But also, it's like I don't want to be all around my friends who are moving forward, and I feel like I'm stuck and stagnant in this place. It just felt very heavy for me to watch them live their lives while I couldn't, and I felt like I wasn't anymore.
Yeah.
And then like Danielle as well. Again, we have very similar stories. I was scared to gain all of this weight that I knew would come with pregnancy, and I've known that because my sisters had kids, Danielle had a kid. Like, I mean, when someone is pregnant, they gain weight. And I had just got to like the best version of myself that I felt I was. Like I was eating healthy, I was staying on top of my workouts, and I was like the fittest that I had been in a really long time. And so I was proud of my body at the time. And I knew that that was going to change too. It was like everything that I loved was getting sucked out from underneath me and getting pulled and jerked. And I couldn't hold on to it anymore because I made the choice to have this child.
Yeah.
Not only that, our lease was ending. And Fred and I had to make the decision of what to do. It was like, do we decide to stay in Dallas and I keep this job that I currently hate and we move into an apartment together? Or do we go where he and I live closer to, like Corpus Christi? Or it was just everywhere. We were not sure. But my sister gave us a call and let us know that her husband had a job opportunity for Fred in Odessa, Texas. And if we were able to take it, we would be able to kind of have financial stability, and Fred would be making a lot of money fairly quickly. Well, more money than what he was making, because at the time he wasn't making much. And I had my job, but again, I was ready to quit. So we decided to go that route and move to Odessa. And I ended up quitting my job because it just was too much mentally, and it felt really like out of alignment for me and draining and all. And so when we moved to Odessa, we moved in this small RV. And moving to the RV initially, I felt like, okay, cool, yeah, I can do that because, like, I don't know, it just seemed easy. We can move to an RV. We don't really have to pay too much rent. The RV was cheap because
Yeah.
it was my sister's, and it just seemed like a like the feasible option, like the thing I should be doing. And yeah, that was short-lived because I felt really cluttered in that space. And not only that, my cat and his hair was everywhere and my mindset was cluttered and just everything felt so heavy. And like all of these, we're getting all of these gifts already, and it was like we have no space for any of that. Like where am I gonna put the baby? Like I
Yeah.
was so worried. I was so worried, and I was just ready to leave that whole space. And we were in there the whole time of me being pregnant. And so I was just bypassing, I was literally shoving down all these feelings that I had and just shoving and shoving and shoving and shoving because I felt like I made this decision. I need to stand in this choice, and I can't feel this way because I made the choice. Like I need to be feeling happy and excited for this baby. Like that's what I have inside me, and like I should be loving her. And there were small moments where I felt like excited, but the bad outweighed the good in these situations because again, I wasn't never felt ready to have a kid and never thought I was going to.
Yeah.
It's just heavy around that time. And so I was again bypassing all of those feelings and emotions. And I also didn't resonate with being a mom at all. Like, I've in the past, even when it came to like podcasts or things I would see online, I would just skip through. And so, like Danielle, I wasn't doing really any like intentional research on my baby, or I would look at TikToks, but it would just be like here and there. Or if I felt like I needed an item, I would go search the reviews, which didn't ever help. And it was just like I was bypassing the fact that I was even pregnant because I was shoving down all those emotions and feelings that I didn't want to feel. And that was the problem. I didn't want to feel them, and I wasn't allowing them to be felt.
Yeah.
Um, so I was questioning my full decision around all of that. And just like Danielle, constantly asking, like, did I make the right choice? Did I not? Like, why did I make this decision? Like, and I felt just completely drained, and I had fear around everything, including birth, including being a mom. I felt like, again, like Danielle too, like I was already feeling because I had all these feelings inside me that I felt like you shouldn't have been feeling when you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Like pregnancy, when looking online, right? Online is always such like a small fraction of your life, but it seemed like it should be a happy time. I should be jumping for joy and super excited for everything I was going through, and I wasn't. And so I just put all this shame and guilt around myself, which created, honestly, I feel like me getting actually really sick during my pregnancy. I started to have really, really bad anxiety to the point where I couldn't even talk to somebody without turning beet red in the face. And when I mean by somebody, I mean by Fred. I mean by Danielle, my two best friends, the people that are with me through it all. I couldn't talk to my family. Oh God, I'm getting chills because it just like, it makes me so sad that like I was once this person who was just outgoing and could talk to anyone and everyone. And now it was like everything was taken away from me, even my personality. It just felt really fucking heavy. And it
It
just like
does.
it felt like it didn't stop, Like I remember specifically talking to my doctor, turning beet red in the face, and then them like trying to come like go around what was happening. And one of the doctors was like, "Oh, pregnancy, so many hormones, right?" And I was like, "Yeah," but I'm like wanting to cry. Immediately when I left the appointment, cried in my car for like 30 minutes. Called Danielle and was like, "Dude, I can't talk to nobody." Like it was just very heavy. And I didn't feel empowered at all in those moments. Obviously, if I can't even have a conversation with somebody and I turn beet red, which they can see too, they can physically see. It'd be different if I was just feeling it inside, but when they can see what's going on, it's like outside of me, it just like ripped my confidence from underneath me.
Yeah.
And I'm still actually dealing with that to this day. It is getting better though, as I've stepped more into who I am again. But aside from that, I ended up getting sick. I had really high blood pressure, and I went to the doctor, and they asked me if I had all these symptoms like swelling, blurred vision, weight gain, and I told them I had high anxiety, and all of those were symptoms of preeclampsia. And now, if you don't know what preeclampsia is, it's an illness in pregnancy where your placenta is fighting your body, and it can cause things like seizures and, in really extreme cases, death. And so that was heavy. And immediately they told me I had that, and that my blood pressure was so high. It was like 120 over 80, but I think it got to the 200s at one point, and they're like, "Girl, you got to go like to the hospital now." And so that's when they admitted me. I was only 30 weeks into my pregnancy. Pregnancy is normally 40 plus. And so I was just really early, and I couldn't help but to feel in those moments like, did I manifest this on myself? Because I feel like with all this stress and turmoil going on in my head, like I had to have manifest all of this in my current life. Like I feel like they say whenever, you get like an illness or sickness in your body, it's because your mind's not right. And that's where I just felt like I was. And I felt like all of it was my fault. And it kept being my fault. It felt like it was just really heavy. I
Yeah.
mean, now, yeah, I mean, but now I can realize, right? Like reflection, now that I'm out of my whole pregnancy era, it's like I'm realizing there's a bigger picture. And one of my bigger pictures was to share my story, to share our story together,
Yeah.
Danielle. We went through a lot so that we could share and connect with women who feel the same and who are too scared to admit it, because it was hard I was literally bypassing, even in my journal, I wasn't being honest with nobody. Like it's hard to go through a process of pregnancy that seems so happy again, but you're feeling like shit the whole time. And
Yeah.
so it's hard to even admit it to yourself, but that's definitely why we want to be here for women who need that community and connection and support during it all, because compassion over everything. Like we really got to hold this compassion and validate our own feelings in this time, because that's the only way that we'll be able to get through. You got to feel it to heal it. And I wasn't feeling it at all. I also feel like during that whole thing, the real root of it all is like, and me and Danielle can both agree to this, it was like we were not wanting to take on the responsibilities of a parent. Like that identity of having to go from a life of freedom and no structure and doing whatever the hell I want, whenever the hell I want. We knew that the responsibility of being a parent would be obviously like none of that. We wouldn't really be able to. I know like this doesn't seem that important, but this was a part of our identities. And we were partying and doing what we want and drinking and going out on weekends and listening to music, and all of those things that were part of our identity for so many years was now not a part of our identity. And it was hard for us to let that go, because I mean, it's like a hard stop. Like
Yeah.
you don't get
Immediately.
to, yeah, you don't get to gradually get there. It's like hard stop. I'm pregnant. I can't drink, can't go out, can't do this, can't do that. And it's like, it's really heavy, really heavy.
Yeah. Extremely. And I think we disregard, and like it's easy to not give yourself compassion. I did the opposite. You ignored your feelings. I looped mine too hard. Like
Yeah.
I felt mine too heavy. I looped them too heavy. And also self compassion. We both need to. Everyone should give themselves, no matter what their thing. But on the flip side, it's easier to look back and see like not only were our hormones crazy, but I think it was the first time for both of us where we really had to face all this sober,
Yeah.
like
No.
completely sober. Like there was
No vices.
no vices. And I think that I'm not going to speak for Dakota, but knowing both of our story, I think that's another thing that aided us to turn to food and gaining weight, is
No,
because it
you're
was
right.
really the only vice left that we had to, shove shit down there.
Yeah, literally.
Literally, yeah. And it was just a difficult time, and to have to process, you're not really like giving yourself that credit, like in the middle of it
Yeah.
all, we weren't like, look, we're not drinking, we're not smoking, we're not partying, we're not like able to just turn to all these different things when we're feeling down. It's like, no, you actually have to fucking face it.
Yeah.
And I agree with her with the responsibility part. Like, I didn't want to take on those responsibilities. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with parenthood, like I talked about. Like,
Yeah.
it's taking care of a human life, your heart outside of your body. Like, it's terrifying, and the unknown is terrifying too. I know that in pregnancy there's a lot of unknown. Is my baby going to be okay? Is it going to have any issues? how's he going to come out? Like when you become a parent, you really have to adopt the fact that like no matter what happens, you got to parent this child. And that scared me because I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to. Like if something came out wrong with him, I didn't know if I could have that like heart and compassion to like, it just sounds fucked up, but I feared a lot of things like that. Like I feared a lot about being a parent and in that responsibility. Like you said, it's a responsibility. No matter what you are gifted in your child, it's your responsibility to nurture and care and love for it no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying. The
Oh, it
unknown.
is scary, especially
Yeah.
because, again, like you said, like you want to walk into this and be the best version of yourself for your child so that they can too be the best version of themselves and not have to go through what we went through childhood. I'm not saying the childhood was terrible or anything like that, but I'm saying like there are things that I wouldn't want my kid to have to go through, and they can learn that through me. And they holding compassion and listening and letting them be seen and heard is like so important. And I wanted to be that for my child so badly, but right then and there, I felt like I could never be that for my child because of all
Yeah.
of the things that were going on in my head.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought you were going to talk, but just just some personal like little last touches that we want to, reiterate and kind of go back over what we did discuss is that just know that mamas, you are strong and resilient. I mean, we all are. So just parents in general, people in general, you are strong and resilient. Stand strong in the choice you made because just remember that there's actually no wrong choice. You can make whatever choice you decide, and it's ultimately going to take you to where you're supposed to be and what's going to bring you to your highest self when you're working in that direction. And just remember to surrender to the flow of life because we cannot change what is in our present moment. And I think a lot of my anxiety stemmed from that. It was like I was focused on the past and the future, but like presently, I was safe. And when we think about, just focusing on what's now currently with us, it's like what anxieties really are there? So just
Yeah.
surrender to the flow of your present life and be compassionate towards yourself because what you're going through will pass. Me and Danielle are on the other side of pregnancy.
Yeah.
We're doing good. And just know that the universe is always in co-creation with you and it has your back no matter what. So it's always working and conspiring with you. And just know that there's good on the outside of what you can't see. And then whatever you're going through, it is to get to your best and highest version of yourself. And you got this.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's just motherhood's all unknown. Every step of the way is an unknown. There's no book you can read. There's no other person you can watch parent. Every child is its own child with their
Yeah.
own needs. And I learned this a lot in postpartum when I was looking at tips and tricks and all these things didn't work for my kid because every kid is different. Not everyone's going to have the same experience. And I think you reach levels of unknown. Pregnancy, all of it's unknown. Then postpartum, some of it's unknown. And then you learn a little. And then toddler life, it's different levels.
Yeah.
And as cliche as it really sounds, but like your instincts kick in. They just do. At one point, like it's all terrifying. Then next, you're like, okay, I got this. Like Dakota said, there is a bigger picture and purpose to it all. Even if you can't feel it right now, there's days where I still don't feel it.
Yeah.
And there's days where I didn't feel it at all through pregnancy, but I see some of it now and it's beautiful. And there's so many like joyous moments in the hard days.
Yeah.
And I think a big part for both of us has been trying to let go of all the shoulds, quote unquote, with parenting. There's so many.
Yeah.
And they differ from, everyone's going to tell you a different thing that you should or should not be doing. And I think in order for you to really listen to your own intuition and your own child's needs is you have to let go of everyone else's should and let go of the should completely and just do what's best and what's best for you in the moment. And it might shift and it might change and there might be things that later you're like, okay, that's not something in alignment, but this is now. And like you all move and you flow and you grow together and you really are growing with your baby. And there's a lot of beauty in all this toughness. And so I just want to end this on that, like, yes, there's some dark moments. Maybe you align with that and maybe you can't see through to the other side yet, but know that like all of this is valid and you
Yeah.
do get through to the other side, and you do survive it, and you're better for it, and you're stronger for it, and it's an experience that's yours. And that's another thing with this episode, is this is me and Dakota's experience. If you resonate, that's great, and we hope it helps you feel a little bit better. And if you don't, and you had a completely different experience, that's great. I'm so happy for you, and I'm so think that everyone's experience in motherhood is valid and deserves to be loved and cared for and respected,
Yes.
because we're all moms doing our fucking best out here. And I think we would be so much stronger if we stopped shaming each other for our individual experiences. And just because yours was different than mine, or you believe something different than me, doesn't make mine bad, doesn't make yours bad, doesn't mean I'm right, doesn't mean you're wrong, or vice versa. We're all in this together. Like, why keep isolating ourselves because of our different experiences?
Yeah.
And that's where we're at here, and that's where we're going forward. We want this to always be a really safe space for moms and people. If even if you're not a mom, you know, we're going to have discussions that aren't just parenthood based, but we do want you to feel comfortable and safe here, and know that this
Yes.
is a community and a village where we're all welcome and we're all celebrated no matter how we feel. And this is real. This is the real deal. We're not sugarcoating parenthood. We're not going to come on here every day and tell you this is the best experience of our lives. We're going to tell you how it is real and how we feel. And we hope that helps people more than anything. And if it doesn't, then this isn't the space for you. And
Yes.
we say that with love. I know Dakota feels
Yep.
the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's where we're at with this episode. And in the next 2 episodes, we're going to be each taking you separately. We're going to do our own episodes for the first time, but they're going to be our own birth stories. We both had extremely different birth stories, so we want to make sure that we give each other that time to highlight and give y'all all birth stories are different. They're all going to be different no matter what, but we do want to just highlight both of our different ones and let y'all in on how that went for both of us. And we hope that it benefits y'all in different ways as well. And we also hope you guys really enjoyed this first episode back. It's been really fun for us. We missed you guys so much, and we're so glad to be back. And even though it's nerve-wracking to be sharing this kind of like vulnerability, we want to remind people that there's power in these vulnerable conversations, and there's power in being honest and real about situations like this. And if you did get benefits and you did enjoy this episode, we really feel free to share it with someone you feel would also benefit, or share it on your platforms and share wherever you can. It would really help us grow and reach more and make our community and our village, more expanded. And we really hope that y'all take something from this, because we are too.
Absolutely. And more on growth. If you guys could please just leave us a review, it would definitely help us reach the people in need. And also, if you're our friends, you know how that goes. We love and thank you for your support. But yeah, we love you guys. And thank you for being so freaking patient with us. We know it's been like 2 years, but
Yeah.
literally. But we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.